On a warm September afternoon in 1972, a dog wandered into its owner's backyard in Springfield, New Jersey, carrying a grisly discovery. In its jaws was a decomposed human forearm. What followed was a chilling investigation that led to the remains of a 16-year-old who had gone missing 6 weeks earlier. The scene where her body was found, an abandoned quarry known as the Devil's Teeth, sparked a whirlwind of sensational rumors, whispers of witchcraft, satanic rituals, and occult sacrifices. The tabloids ran wild, painting this death as something straight out of a horror movie. But behind the media frenzy and tales of dark rituals lies a more troubling truth. The killer has never been found. This is The Secret of the Devil's Teeth, the mystery of Jeanette DePalma. Hey, y'all, I'm Chris Calvert.
And I'm her husband, Rob Powders. Welcome to Hitched to Homicide.
For better or worse.
Till death do us part.
Welcome back, everybody.
Yes, welcome. And for our Mandarin-speaking friends,
okay.
Wan Ying.
You know, there are a ton of kids out there that speak Mandarin Chinese. It's crazy.
I know.
Well, wherever you're listening, be sure to subscribe to Hitched to Homicide, then like, rate, and review the podcast so other people who are like you and love true crime can find us.
Yep.
And if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button below. If you want true crime with us all the time, please join our closed Facebook group, The In-Laws and Outlaws. Go to Facebook, type in H2H, In-Laws and Outlaws. Lots of people have been doing it. We're getting lots of new people in there.
Yes, we are.
Answer a few questions and you're in. Go join.
It's fun.
I post photos and other information in there. Lots of good folks.
Yes.
You can find us on Instagram at Hitched to Homicide or on X at H2H_podcast. Sometimes I get those two mixed up. And we also now have a Buy Me a Coffee link if you want to send Rob some coffee.
Like this.
Working late nights, man.
Yep.
You can also send us a text. The link to that is at the top of the show notes where it says, send Chris and Rob a text. We're getting some funny ones. I might have to put one of them into the In-Laws and Outlaws and ask for a translation. I got one. And I was like, what does that mean?
Every once in a while, you'll get one, you'll go, okay, should I laugh at this or should I not?
But this one's complimentary. But then I was like, what's that second sentence mean? I don't know. I don't know if somebody fat fingered it or what. So I'll put that in the In-Laws and Outlaws. Maybe somebody can help me with it.
All right.
Well, this case is a riddle wrapped in a mystery inside an enigma.
Uh-oh. Charles?
Who said that?
Charles Manson.
No.
Oh.
Winston Churchill. Well, Charles Manson might have said it, but
he did.
Winston Churchill said it first.
Oh, okay.
A riddle wrapped in a mystery inside an enigma.
Yeah, that's what Charles Manson did. So he stole that from Winston Churchill.
He apparently stole it from Churchill.
Okay.
Yeah. Before we get started, let me thank some sources. JusticeForJeanette.com, Wikipedia, WeirdNewJersey.com, Reddit, VocalMedia.com, the Newark Star Ledger, and the New York Daily Times.
All right. Well, you ready?
I am.
Let's do it.
Jeanette Christine DePalma was born on August 3rd, 1956, to parents Salvatore and Florence DePalma in Jersey City, New Jersey.
Nice Italian family.
The DePalmas are a large Italian Catholic family consisting of both parents, 5 daughters, and 3 sons.
Wow.
That's a houseful.
Yeah.
In the mid-1960s, the family moved from Roselle, New Jersey, to the township of Springfield, about 30 minutes north. And Springfield was an upper-middle-class area. It was an all-American city, very clean, hospitable. In 1966, the DePalmas moved into a large home at 4 Clearview Drive, and the DePalma family kept to themselves, and they didn't socialize much.
Okay.
Jeanette was described by her friends as a normal teenager. She was quiet, she was kind, she was funny. She was sweet but firm. She had wavy hair. I read that she would do everything she could to try, every trick in the book to try to make it straight. You know, if you have straight hair, you want curly hair. If you have curly hair, you want straight hair.
Right.
She loved rock music. She loved hanging out with her friends and attending parties. It's the 60s. So parties, music, hitchhiking.
Yeah.
Hitchhiking was big.
The Beatles.
And it was a very convenient way of getting where you needed to be. Jeanette would hitchhike to get where she was going sometimes. Jeanette briefly attended Union Catholic Regional High School in the 1970s until later transferring to Jonathan Dayton Regional High School, all inside her freshman year. I don't know if that was that for some reason, if something happened at school to make her want to do this or not.
Right.
It could have been what's coming up.
Uh-oh.
In 1972, Jeanette, now a junior, had plans to attend Trinity Bible Institute in North Dakota after graduating.
Oh, wow.
Because not long after the move to Springfield, the DePalma family began attending the Assemblies of God Evangel Church in Elizabeth, New Jersey, several times a week.
Okay.
So not Catholic Mass anymore.
Yeah.
They were evangelical Christians. Her family were all born-again evangelical Christians.
Okay.
And this is primarily an Italian Catholic area, and people were a little confused at their conversion. And some of the folks who lived around them said that the DePalmas were, quote, weird and rude, end quote. And some even went as far speculating that they were involved with the mafia. Now, according to Jeanette's family, they were looked upon as second-class citizens in their town. I don't think you look upon the mafioso as second-class citizens, right? Yeah.
No.
Church was a really big part of the DePalma family. Jeanette is involved with activities in the church, and at their church, Pastor James Tate was the man in charge.
Okay.
And he had a son named Wayne, who will go on to also be a minister. It's an active congregation in the early 70s, and this was a time when people were sort of turning away from drugs and turning to Jesus. They were called Jesus freaks.
Mm-hmm.
And according to James Tate, the Jesus freak era was God's mercy on this generation. Can I get an amen?
Amen, brother.
The evangelicals believe that God shows up and that miracles happen and the Bible is true. Lots of people were turning to church from drugs, hippies to Jesus. The DePalma family was part of that congregation, and Jeanette was a, quote, classic beauty, end quote, very outgoing. At church, she was on a spiritual journey. She was active in sharing her faith, and according to Gail, her best friend, quote, as far as Christianity-wise, we went to Wildwood for Jeanette's birthday. Jeanette would say, well, before we can go on some rides, we have to do some witnessing and give the pamphlets out, end quote.
They're handing out track sheets.
They were pamphlets of Christ Church and this new evangelical religion.
Right.
She even dated the pastor's son, Wayne, for a short while. I think like 2 or 3 months.
Okay.
I saw where he said she kissed him on the cheek and said, it's not working out, Wayne. He turned around and walked away.
Well, there you go.
You know, when you're 14, 15, 16, that's pretty much how a breakup goes, right?
Yeah. These days it's with a text.
No, they just ghost you.
Yeah, that's true.
I'll never see you again.
Yeah.
Around 11 a.m. on Monday, August 7th, 1972, Jeanette made a telephone call to her cousin, Gail Donahue, saying that she wouldn't be able to hang out with her that day because she needed to stay home and do chores. And Gail and Jeanette had made plans that day with 2 other boys they'd met the night before at Echo Lake Park. So after some coaxing, Jeanette agreed to hitchhike the 8 miles, which is about a 15-minute drive, over to Gail's home. And at around 1:20 p.m., Jeanette grabbed her purse, told her mom, Florence, that she was going to walk to the train station and then take the train into Berkeley Heights to meet Gail.
Okay.
This was the last time that Jeanette's family would ever see her. Later that night, Robin Ludke, who was 19 in 1972, picked up a hitchhiker. She pulled up to a traffic light and saw a young girl with long hair standing on the corner with her thumb out. And she's thinking, what in the world is this young girl doing hitchhiking this late at night?
Right.
And she tells Robin that she's going to see friends in Berkeley Heights. And Robin says, I can take you. So this young girl gets in the car, and Robin's playing Led Zeppelin. They talked about the music, but Jeanette was looking down and playing with the chain around her neck, like she's looking down and rubbing the chain back and forth across her chin.
Okay.
But what Robin can't see is that this chain has a crucifix on it. And Robin will later say that she thought this girl had something weighing on her. And when Robin made it to the point where she needed to turn, she looks at this young girl and says, how much further do you need to go? Because this is my turn. And the girl says, my friends are just up there on the corner, pointing to 3 boys and 1 girl. And she got out of the car.
Okay.
Now, later that evening, after failing to return home and having not been heard from all day, Salvatore and Florence made their first call to the police around 10 p.m. But it would be another 24 hours before police officially listed Jeanette as missing. And for days, the family went back and forth on whether Jeanette had decided to run away or if she was just truly missing.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently this was a thing that happened. I mean, we do these cases a lot, and they're like, police are like,
yeah,
they're a teenager.
Yeah.
They run away. They're hitchhiking. They'll be back.
Yeah, they'll probably show back up.
Yeah. But still, the DePalmas didn't get much help from the detectives, and they took it upon themselves to go out and search for their daughter, Jeanette, but they didn't find her. Officer Donald Schwert was actually on patrol at the time, and he gets word that the DePalma girl is missing. She disappeared, and he was to keep his eyes peeled on patrol. And everybody seemed to think that maybe she'd run away. Everybody's expecting her to come home. They thought it was in her nature just to run away, and that was what was making her parents so worried. 6 weeks go by, and the summer of 1972 is over, and she's nowhere to be found. Then on September 19th, 1972, Officer Donald Schwert is on patrol, and he gets a call to go up to Wilson Avenue Apartments, where a woman says that her dog brought home a bone that looks like an arm.
Jeez.
He gets to the scene, and he's looking at this bone, and I've seen this interview with him, and he says, oh, yeah, it was a human bone. It was a human forearm because there are fingernails on the fingers.
Oh, man.
And he's thinking this arm might be the missing DePalma girl.
And I thought it was bad when Scotty showed up with a little chipmunk. Man.
Yeah, I don't like it when he does that. Y'all, he's pretty fast. He can catch a chipmunk and end his life like that.
He's a Yorkshire Terrier.
He's an assassin is what he is. A search party is formed that afternoon. Ed Kish, who's another police officer, is saying she's somewhere in this area. He's telling everybody she's somewhere in this area, meaning the Hoodale Quarry area, which was adjacent to where the dog brought home this arm.
Okay.
Now, Officer Donald Schwert starts searching through the woods, and he finds a body in the quarry on what he called, quote, that plateau, end quote. It's called the Devil's Teeth. And when he finds this body, he sees it's a girl, and she's lying face down. Her face was almost gone. Her toes were gone from the animals eating them.
Ugh.
And she's really decomposed because it's been the month of August.
Oh.
And she's been out in the elements for 6 weeks. Yeah. It's been hot outside, right?
Yeah.
According to several witnesses at the scene, Jeanette's skeletal remains were surrounded by a series of strange and possibly occult objects. Descriptions vary, but the most commonly agreed upon account states that her remains were found inside a coffin-shaped perimeter of fallen branches and logs, and inside this perimeter were several small makeshift wooden crosses.
Whoa.
Some Springfield residents later claimed that Jeanette's remains were found lying on a pentagram surrounded by mutilated animal remains. Law enforcement authorities have denied that this was true.
Okay.
And further controversy was aroused when it was discovered that the body had been found on a cliff known to the locals for several decades as the Devil's Teeth. Now, when the DePalma family gets the news, they're shocked, of course. The police go to Jeanette's room. They get hair from her brush to identify her. The church gets the news of what happened. Remember, she's really involved in her church.
Sure.
And Reverend James Tate goes to talk with the family. His son, Wayne, goes with him. And according to retired Officer Donald Schwert, who was the first man on the scene, everything about this case was hush-hush.
Really?
They never gave her family a cause of death. Although the coroner believed that she'd been strangled. They won't say it's a homicide. They don't say it's a suicide. They just call it a suspicious death.
Okay, why?
Well, that's the same question many people have been asking for 52 years, and we're going to talk about this.
All right.
The Springfield Police Department says that an autopsy could not reveal a cause of death. Her remains and clothing showed no evidence of bone fractures, bullet wounds, or knife strikes. No drug paraphernalia was found on or around the body. For undisclosed reasons, the coroner suspected that strangulation was the cause of death, leading the Union County Prosecutor's Office to treat the case as an unsolved homicide. But they don't. They list it as a suspicious death.
Okay.
The coroner also discovered an unusually high amount of lead in her remains, but no explanation was found for this occurrence either.
Okay.
Now, everybody has heavy metals in their body. You can be tested for it. You know, if you eat a lot of fish, sometimes you have some mercury in there, but everybody's got heavy metals in their bloodstream.
Sure.
But not to the extent of the amount of lead that she had in hers.
She eating paint chips or something?
I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was the 60s and 70s, so who knows what she was actually exposed to.
Right.
But the police from the Springfield Police Department said there were these upside-down crosses and stones placed around her body, and this information is given from someone on the police department to the press. And a firestorm erupted this small town and even all around the country.
I'm sure.
This story just goes like wildfire.
I'm sure it did.
Suddenly, the narrative is that whoever killed Jeanette was possessed by demons. Tons of news reporters were writing that it was witchcraft. Authorities said Jeanette's death may be linked to a coven or a witchcraft assembly thought to exist in the area. And because, according to several witnesses at the scene, her skeletal remains were surrounded by a series of strange and possibly occult objects. Now, the descriptions vary, but the most commonly agreed upon account said that she was in this coffin-shaped perimeter that was made out of fallen branches and logs, and then there were all these little wooden crosses, right?
Right.
And some Springfield residents still said that, you know, she was on this pentagram and there were these mutilated animals around her, right?
Right.
No one knows who at the crime scene said that witches were involved or that there was a pentagram or occult objects, but it wasn't true.
Okay.
Somebody inside the police department said it was. Then it was all over the newspapers. Quote, Satanists may have killed slain girl, end quote, which was probably a quote from Pastor Tate himself.
Right.
Because Pastor Tate, who apparently never let a spiritual crisis go to waste, believed that a group of Satanists and witches killed Jeanette. And Pastor Tate is a very charismatic individual. He's very influential. Pastor Tate would point people to the Lord. He was filled with fire and brimstone.
There you go.
And he's convinced it was occult related and tells his congregation this very thing. And according to his son Wayne, when his father heard the reports from the police, he said publicly, quote, "Those signs could mean she was a human sacrifice," end quote.
Wow.
And now it wasn't just witchcraft or Satanism. She's just a full-blown human sacrifice.
Right, right.
And Pastor Tate made bold statements about it, and the media ran with it. Every day there's a news story saying that Jeanette may have been captured by Satanists and then killed when she tried to lecture the group on Jesus Christ. So now they believe Jeanette may have been witnessing to them. She was bold in her Christianity. And so you can't cross off, the fact that maybe they were trying to abduct her and she was trying to witness to them. And they were like, "No way, Jose."
Man, this story just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
It does. Then they thought maybe she was killed by teenagers who were involved in witchcraft or the occult. And they were trying to pull her into this coven, and she was trying to pull them back into the church, helping lost teens to find God.
Right.
And according to sources today, a lot of witchcraft was actually going on at Jonathan Dayton High School, where she attended.
Oh, really?
They have verified as of, 2022,
Right.
that there was witchcraft going on at Jonathan Dayton High School, where she went to school.
Wow.
Now, police searched Jeanette's room, and they found books on demonism and Satanism. And because Satanism was alive and well in this area, they took it very seriously. Early in the investigation, Springfield police received a tip regarding a homeless man living in the woods near the quarry. This man was known to locals as Red, and it was alleged that he fled his campsite in the woods shortly after Jeanette went missing. And while this lead initially looked kind of promising, the Union County Prosecutor's Office ultimately decided that Red had nothing to do with Jeanette's death.
Okay.
Investigators continued to attempt to find leads. Attempt. I've got my air quotes up. But due to a lack of tips from the public, along with inconsistent stories told to the police by her family, friends, and peers, the case eventually went cold. Now, there was a woman named Lilith Sinclair. I don't know if that's her real name or not,
Okay.
but she was the head of, or she was the high priestess, I should say, of the New Jersey First Church of Satan.
Wow.
I thought it was interesting that it's the first church, because is there going to be a second one? It's like First Presbyterian.
Wow.
And she was recruiting teens to sell the Satanic Bible. And they believed that maybe Jeanette was learning all about the Satanic Bible in order to pull people away from it. And according to Pastor Tate, it was a war between the Christians and the Satanists in the area. And they believed it all started with, you're not going to believe this,
Right.
John List. And we've done a story on him.
Really?
Who in Westfield, New Jersey, killed his entire family. We've done this case.
Yep.
He killed him in Westfield, New Jersey, November of 1971, just 6 months before Jeanette goes missing. And when he killed his family, he said, "I saved their souls from the devil." And Patty, his daughter, was actually into witchcraft.
Oh, really?
This is one town over.
No way.
And 6 months before.
Wow.
Now, everybody assumes that's what happened to her. In the 70s, there was this drama of good against evil. There's Charles Manson out there. There's Satan's hippies. There were people who said they were witches. There were guys who said they were warlocks. And apparently they wanted or needed a sacrifice. And Jeanette was the sacrifice.
Okay.
But why hasn't anybody been arrested?
Right.
Why hasn't anyone on the police force questioned anyone? Because according to the Justice for Jeanette organizers, it's because the Satanists have a long history of getting away with murder.
Really?
At least that's what they speculate. All these years later, 52 years to be exact, there's still not that much information. And according to Julie Walsh, who is a professor of the philosophy of witchcraft, the Salem witch panic started in the winter of 1692.
A few years earlier.
In the home of Reverend Samuel Parris, and his daughter and his niece started to experience the symptoms of being bewitched. And the girls said, quote, "These women in the community are witches, and they have sent demons to possess us," end quote.
Wow.
And these people are very pious, and they took the accusations very seriously, and it escalated quickly. And the point is, words are powerful when they come from the right people who have power in the community, like a Reverend Tate.
Right.
And by the way, Tate made national news.
Really?
Yeah.
How do you do that? Just by what he was saying?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
He's attracting all this national attention.
And he loves it.
And he loves it.
Yeah.
And it's just about this time that Robin, the girl who gave Jeanette a ride, sees the press and the photo of Jeanette, and she's like, holy cow, that's the girl I dropped off who met the three boys and the girl on the corner.
Right.
And she goes to the police and gives them a report. And after she does this, they never ask her another question.
You're kidding.
Ever again.
I want to know who's on the police force.
They're not talking to any of Jeanette's friends or her family. No one. They're not asking questions. You would expect a police department who is trying to solve a murder would be asking.
Yeah.
And what some believe is that a police officer on the scene reported what seemed to him to be crosses around Jeanette's body, and she was inside this makeshift coffin of twigs or whatever on Devil's Teeth Plateau.
Right.
And based on that one person's report, the story blew up.
Really?
Big time. I mean, just think about it. You've got this evangelical minister,
True.
fire and brimstone, likes the attention,
Right.
feels like this is maybe a way to bring people into the flock. You don't want to be Jeanette. You
Right.
don't want to be a victim like Jeanette. You need to put on the armor of the Lord.
Yep.
But despite rumors and innuendo offered by the Springfield police regarding Jeanette's possibly dying as a result of a drug overdose, they floated that one out there. No drug paraphernalia was found on or near or around her body, and she wasn't known by her friends or family to have used hard recreational or prescription drugs.
Right.
She smoked a little weed every now and then. It's the 70s.
Sure.
And DePalma's autopsy report makes no mention of the possibility of a drug overdose. And the medical examiner went on record saying, he's the one who actually goes on record and says, I think she was strangled. But he couldn't say she was, and he couldn't say that she wasn't.
Yeah.
Around 2 weeks after the discovery of Jeanette's remains, big newspapers, including the New York Daily News, showing up in town. They start reporting that she may have been a victim of this occult sacrifice carried out by Satanists or a local coven of witches who operated inside near Watchung. This coverage was spurred by reports that the body had been found with all the strange objects. You know, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
It sounds like it.
And in every story, they go back to John List killing his family, and he was saving them. And I don't know if you remember this or not, but after they're all dead and that house is empty, there were supposed to have been some satanic rituals that happened inside that house, and they actually burned part of it down. I don't know if you remember that from that case.
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah. So, you know, maybe these people really were in the area.
Yeah.
But police dropped this case like a hot potato. They're like, we have no clues. We have no witnesses. But they haven't spoken with anybody. And the case goes cold. In November of 1981, Jeanette's mom, Florence DePalma, decided to hire her own private investigator after years of getting nowhere with the Springfield police. But try as she might, Any and all efforts to gain information pertaining to her daughter's murder were either declined or ignored by the Springfield police.
What's going on inside there?
For all these years, they said that all of their records prior to 1995 were lost or destroyed due to Hurricane Floyd in 1999. Lies, lies, and more lies.
How convenient.
Then one day after Reverend James Tate has left the church there in Springfield, Florence, Jeanette's mother, goes to the current pastor at the time, his name is Pastor Kevin Brennan, and hands him an envelope asking him to carry on the work of finding her daughter's killer because she doesn't know how much longer she's going to be alive.
Right.
She gives him this envelope, and he feels like it's a commissioning from God. And he would actually go to the quarry where Jeanette was murdered, but he has no game plan. He doesn't really know why he's there.
Right.
And for a long period of time, he didn't know what to do. He needed someone to help him. And that's when he learned about Justice for Jeanette and got in contact with them.
Okay.
Then in the late 1990s and early 2000s, Weird New Jersey magazine received anonymous letters about Jeanette's death. The editor and co-founder of the magazine, his name is Mark Morin, began investigating the case and wrote about all these purported suspicious details, including the allegations that the Springfield police had lost or destroyed the case file.
Right.
And the Springfield Police Department maintains that the file was actually lost due to Hurricane Floyd. Same story they gave Jeanette's mother.
Right.
Again, lies, lies, lies. He eventually teamed up with Weird New Jersey correspondent Jesse P. Pollock to write a book called Death on the Devil's Teeth, The Strange Murder That Shocked Suburban New Jersey. Now, throughout the course of their research, Pollock and Moran discovered several instances of a possible cover-up and connections to other unsolved murders and previously unknown suspects.
All right.
Now, finally, due to the Freedom of Information Act, the Springfield police had to hand over copies of Jeanette DePalma's case from the Union County Prosecutor's Office.
All right.
It's now September of 2024, just a few months ago.
Yeah.
And Weird New Jersey has these copies, and they reviewed the photographs from the crime scene and stated that they were, quote, confident that there was no occult activity involved in her death, end quote.
Really?
And the magazine further stated that they found no evidence of crosses made from sticks and twigs, or a halo of stones, or animal sacrifices that were allegedly found near the body in the crime scene photographs. It's all a lie.
Wow.
It's a completely different crime scene from what they told the press it was. She wasn't in a coffin-like structure. She was face down, and there were tree limbs on the ground, as there would be in any forest you walk into.
Sure.
There's no evidence of any crosses around her body. Florence, Jeanette's mother, never tells Pastor Kevin Brennan that she believes it had anything to do with witchcraft. She believed that the headlines were distracting the world from the reality that her 16-year-old daughter was just flat out murdered.
Yeah.
And they were only paying attention to witches and the occult.
Right.
So there are two possibilities here. Either it's true or it's a cover-up. It's a scapegoat and a cover-up. Either it's true that she was involved in some sort of witchcraft or Satanism, or it's a scapegoat and a cover-up.
I'm going to go with cover-up.
Yeah, very early in the investigation, the police brought a witch in as a consultant to help with the investigation. They wanted her to examine the evidence that they brought to her, and they brought her actually to the crime scene. Florence, her mother, believed that her daughter had been murdered and the police department had been inept in their investigation, which they were.
Right.
Ed Kish, another officer on the search, he was the one from the very beginning who said, she's going to be in this area of the quarry, right here. She's going to be in this.
Right.
He apparently had his own way of doing things. He was a little hard-headed, according to another police officer. They're all retired now.
Yeah.
He was a patrolman, then he went into the detective bureau as a juvenile officer. And he was actually in the schools because he's a juvenile officer, and he knew who was doing what and what was going on because he had the kids telling him all the time.
Okay.
And they would come to him and tell him, this is what's happening. And he knew the family, and he knew Jeanette.
Okay.
And Ed Kish said the Jeanette was a bad girl.
Really?
That she was a party girl, and that he had to pull her out of cars at the park. And there were all kinds of rumors floating around. But was she painted that way? Was she just old enough to be going out at 16 and it was summertime, there are lots of parties?
Right.
And according to Jeanette's family, she had a diary that she wrote things in. And her last diary entry is 2 weeks before she goes missing for 6 weeks. Friday, July 21st, 1972. After work, Gail and me hitchhiked to Donald's. I was so excited about seeing Joe. I walked in and my heart was beating 500 times a second. You gotta love a young teenager's.
Ah, young love.
Young love. Then she wrote, some dude comes over and tries to make it with me, shoving SC down my throat, Southern Comfort.
Yeah.
And when Joe saw me, he smiled and stared at me for 10 minutes straight. Damn, I forgot what I was talking about because Joe's eyes turned me on! Exclamation point. We decided to go for a walk. What can I say about winding up on the grass? But what a damn horny guy. But I was good, end quote. So this community accepted witchcraft, that this girl had gone astray. And it seems as though this Ed Kish guy is sort of victim blaming Jeanette.
Yeah.
So there were so many things said about her. Was it a cover-up for whoever was really responsible for her murder?
Right.
Was it someone connected to the police?
Mm-hmm.
Was there a cover-up like such poor police work? Maybe somebody's son or daughter was connected to what happened to Jeanette.
There you go.
And the police covered it up.
Yep.
An example of this is at the crime scene. A police officer picked up Jeanette's purse, searching inside for drugs or an ID, and when he didn't find anything, he put it back down. There's a police report that says, they find this out when they get like the Freedom of Information Act and they get the file.
Right.
There's a police report that says 4 officers went back for the purse and couldn't find it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And who did the police investigate around Jeanette? The men, right? No, the Tates, the Reverend and his son, they're never questioned. John, her brother, wasn't even interviewed. They didn't interview her family at all. Why was there such an absence of police work?
Yeah.
So conspiracy theory, the teens involved were kids of the police officers.
There you go.
There were boys after her, the guy who tried to shove the Southern Comfort down her throat. These boys were trying to get it with her. Quote, I was happy until some greasers decided to lay down so he could have me, end quote. They were coming on to her. So were they aggressive boys, these 2 boys?
Right.
And then according to Robin Ludecki, the 19-year-old girl that night who picked her up hitchhiking.
Right.
The night she picked up Jeanette, she was meeting those friends. She turned the corner and watched her go up to the traffic light where she met her friends on the corner, which was 2 or 3 young boys and 1 girl. And now that the police reports have been forced to be turned over, missing from the report about Robin is that she was meeting 2 or 3 boys and 1 girl. Yeah. The only thing the police report said was she was going to meet a friend. So where are the boys? Who were the boys?
Yeah.
Today, someone could walk into the police station in Springfield, New Jersey and say, I murdered Jeanette DePalma. And they wouldn't be able to do anything about it because her death is not a homicide. It is a suspicious death and not a homicide.
Yeah.
So when it's declared a homicide, the state police can reinvestigate. The FBI crime report said that she had clothing that was too decomposed for a microscope. But what about DNA? It's been 52 years.
Yep.
But those who want the truth refuse to give it up. These police officers, they're saying they want the truth, but they're refusing to give things up. This is a murder that had nothing to do with witchcraft. And Justice for Jeanette wants anyone who knows something about this crime to come forward. Now, 52 years later, old Ed Kish had said that Jeanette was a wild girl. He has said that there was no basis for the witchcraft theory. Quote, the cops are only as good as the evidence left behind. In Jeanette DePalma's case, there was zero evidence left behind. End quote. Lies.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's true.
That's crazy.
So if you have any information pertaining to the death of Jeanette DePalma, please contact the Springfield Police Department at 973-367-0400. But maybe more important than that is for you to go to change.org. I will provide a link in the show notes and post it again in the In-Laws and Outlaws. The Justice for Jeanette DePalma has a petition there to change Jeanette's death from a suspicious death to a homicide so that the clothing that the FBI has in their possession can be tested with modern DNA technology. But it has to be declared a homicide before they can reopen the case. They currently have 5,070 verified signatures, including mine, and they only need 7,000.
Wow.
I signed it. I hope you will too. This young girl's soul deserves something. It deserves to be, these people need to be held accountable.
Right.
She needs some justice.
Yep.
So just go to change.org and search for Justice for Jeanette DePalma. And again, I will post a link in the show notes.
Awesome.
But that is the homicide, and I said it, homicide, of Jeanette DePalma. And that's all I have to say about that. For nearly 7 years, Jane Doe has lived in the shadows, her past buried deep beneath layers of secrecy and silence. After completing more than was asked of her in her last assignment for the enigmatic Kywolf project, Jane Doe vanished without a trace, leaving behind a trail of dead bodies and unanswered questions. But now, as the specter of her past returns with a vengeance, Jane finds herself thrust back into a world she thought she'd left behind forever. When her former sins come knocking on her door, Jane is faced with an impossible choice: continue to hide in the shadows, or once again take up arms against the forces that threaten to tear apart the fabric of society. With enemies lurking around every corner and allies who may not be what they seem, Jane must rely on her wits, training, and her unyielding determination to survive. And while trust is a luxury she cannot afford, Jane must confront the truth about herself and her past. As the clock ticks, she realizes that the line between family, friend, and foe are razor thin, and in the end, the only person she can rely on is herself. Jane Doe 4 Charlotte is available September 24th, 2024. No name, no regrets, no mercy.
Yeah, there's so much suspicion around this whole thing. Listen, it's got to do with something with the police department.
There's a cover-up somewhere.
Yeah, some kids, whoever did it, is got to be associated with somebody within the police department. That's my opinion. And
I get it. The Justice for Jeanette, they say, it's either true, meaning that these murders, they just get away with them.
Yeah.
Because there's somebody in, government, or there's somebody in the police department who's a Satanist or whatever, and they're just going to cover for these people. Or it's these kids that are going to this high school and their parents are protecting them, or somebody in power is protecting them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But poor Jeanette. I mean, it's just like, oh, okay, whatever. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry you're dead.
And they kept telling everybody, we don't have the files. They got destroyed.
Yeah.
And then they do, the whole the whole thing where the Freedom of Information Act, and it's like, oh, here they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We must have forgotten. Wow. Yeah, it's crazy. Wow. Crazy.
Well, let's get away from something that's so confusing and go to something that's not confusing at all because they're just stupid with a little bless your heart.
Well, bless your heart.
All right, number one, I'm calling man's best friend and driver.
Scotty's going to drive.
A 35-year-old man from a village in central Israel was arrested after letting his dog drive his car.
What?
According to reports, police say they became aware of the incident after the video of the man allowing his dog to drive hit social media.
Oh, Lord.
There is a video where you can see a vehicle moving down the streets of Israel with a dog on his lap and his paws on the steering wheel.
So the dog wasn't just in the driver's seat and he was in the passenger seat.
No, he was sitting on his lap.
Okay.
Yeah, Jerusalem District Police identified the driver, arrested him, and then hit him with a fine for driving a car that did not pass required road tests.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, there's no word on whether or not the dog will face any charges for driving without a license.
Scotty drives every time he gets in the car with me. He's in my lap with his hands on the steering wheel every single time.
All right, number two. Everyone's got to have a goal.
You got to have a goal.
Yep.
Got to have a dream.
Yes, you do. Life is better when you have goals to aspire towards, A 52-year-old Wendell Doyle Goney of Ocala, Florida, that goal appears to be racking up felonies.
Okay.
Most recently, Goney was arrested after he shot down a drone the sheriff's office was using at a crime scene.
Oh.
Yeah, after taking a plea deal on a charge of possession of a firearm as a convicted felon, Goney was able to break that magical 30 felony mark.
Oh, wow.
There's no word on possible celebrations around Ocala to commemorate Goney's achievement.
Can't you just see him being like, there's that damn, I got one.
Oh, man. I'm going to mount that on my wall. All right, number three, and finally.
Yes.
No brains.
That's me.
Stop it. Police respond to reports of a couple seen attempting to break into a few different cars in a neighborhood around 3 a.m. When an officer arrived, they attempted a traffic stop after seeing the reported couple. The car sped off. Surprise, surprise. The car sped off deeper into the subdivision. Unbeknownst to the couple fleeing, there was only one way out and one way in of that subdivision. The couple ended up driving around at high speeds, trying to dodge the officers while they found a way out, which they didn't. They never found an exit. Instead, they crashed into a parked car at a high speed.
Ouch.
Yeah. Officers easily got the two suspects out of the disabled car and secured them while EMTs came to assist with injuries. The driver was identified as 37-year-old Timothy Allen Hogue, who confessed? I don't know.
I don't know if he confessed or not.
Let's say he confessed.
Okay.
There you go. Who confessed to many of the burglaries. And to top it off, he had a tattoo across his neck that read, ready for this?
Yeah.
All gas, no brakes. And as
he did not.
And as I alluded to at the top, this should have been read as all gas, no brains.
All gas, no brakes. Good Lord.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So there's your bless your hearts.
Well, if you have a bless your heart or you know somebody who has a tattoo that shouldn't like that.
Yeah.
All you got to do is go to hitchtohomicide.com. When you get there, there's a pull-down menu, and while you're there, you can also suggest a case or tell us about your brush with true crime.
Please do.
That's my amazing husband out there.
And that's my beautiful bride in the booth.
Join us next time on Hitch to Homicide.
Bye, y'all.